Welcome home, y'all. This is Native Land Pod, and we are here for our MiniPod. Joining us today is the National Director for Working Families Party. Working Families had a really big week this week. We're going to talk to Maurice Mitchell about the historic wins that they saw and some other things around our politics. So, Mo, welcome to Native Land Pod again, good brother.
Yes. Oh, it's good. It's good to be a repeat visitor to the pod, and it's really good to be with y'all.
You too, brother. Welcome. A big week indeed, and not just in New York State, but really around the country, man. I'm curious if we could probably kick off the conversation with you going down the list of highs, lows, what people ought to be watching, paying attention to, and we weren't, as a result of this week's elections.
Yeah.
Give us the rundown.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to parse. And, in some races, there's still kind of votes. But, as it stands today, we'll talk about New York, but I'm excited by the fact that in New York State, we had victories in the city of Albany, the city of Syracuse, the city of Buffalo. And in Albany and Syracuse, we have Sharon Owens in Syracuse, and we have Darcy Pliers in Albany. They will be the first Black women ever to hold those seats, right? And so
Awesome.
it is incredible that we were able to build a coalition around these Black women. And the same money that was fighting us in New York City was fighting us in these races, right? And they represent the same politics, focusing like a laser on affordability, wanting to make the city work for working people. So I'm excited about that. I'm also excited by the fact that, in Georgia, a Black woman was able to run and win statewide, right? And we need to put a spotlight on that seat because, she was able to build a coalition that included clearly a lot of Republicans because she mollywopped her opponent. That's a critical win, and we endorsed in that race, and we're really proud of her. In Detroit, a brother, Denzel McCampbell, keep an eye on him. He ran as an outsider in city council. We endorsed him. We supported him from the very beginning. He's going to be sitting on city council in Detroit. And then there's these very particular races that are very close to my heart because I build the Working Families Party. These are people who ran in the general election, not as a Democrat, against the Democrat and the Republican, as an independent Working Families Party person. And they were able to actually win, right? And so we have a case in New York. In Newburgh, New York, City Council, Tamika Stewart, a Black woman who ran as an independent under the Working Families Party. She will be sitting and governing. In Onondaga County, that's the county where Syracuse is in, there will be a county legislator, Nicole Watts, a Black woman who ran and won in this election as an independent Working Families Party person. And then in Bridgeport, Connecticut, we had a victory. In Hartford, Connecticut, we had a victory with Shantae Browdy. She's going to be sitting at the Hartford Board of Education as an independent WFP candidate, where the Democrats in that election, the Democrats in the Board of Education all joined together to make sure that she could lead the Board of Education as a WFP independent.
Wow.
So, those are things that we're not going to hear because the story, understandably, has been about Zora Mamdani in New York, and we could talk a lot about that. But in terms of like independent Black politics and power, a Black first, and doing it on our terms, there's a lot happening around the country.
That's good.
Can I hop in? I'll ask a question. Thanks for joining us, Maurice. I want to read you something. There was an article in Politico this week, an interview with Steve Bannon, who is, of course, Trump's former strategist, White House strategist. And he has a warning for Republicans, and he name checks you, not specifically, but the WFP. He says, forget the Republican Party in New York, that's a joke. But the National Republican Party and some of the smartest strategists do not realize the power of the Working Families Party and the Democratic Socialists of America for ground game. Modern politics is now about engaging low propensity voters, and they clearly turned them out tonight. And this is kind of the Trump model. This is very serious. Now, unfortunately, the reporter does not fact check him. This certainly is not the Trump model. Trump is copying that model from what Black folks have done for decades. But a lot of our audience, quite frankly, is not familiar. They're not familiar with you. They're not familiar with Working Families Party. They don't know that this exists. So some people are tuning in saying, who is this? Why do I care about those races in states where I don't live? Why should I care? So how can they plug in? And what's your 30-second elevator pitch to them, especially since you've fallen on the radar? The party has fallen on the radar of such right-wing conservative extremists like Steve Bannon.
Well, you'll know me by my enemies. So the Working Families Party was born in a moment in the late 90s when the Democratic Party decided to get in bed with Wall Street. And that's the same Democratic Party that passed the 94 crime bill. That's the same Democratic Party that supported welfare reform, quote unquote welfare reform, that made it harder for working class and poor people to access those services, and using a lot of racist tropes to do that. And at that time, the Working Families Party was born because many people felt that the Democrats were betraying the base. And the heart of the Democratic Party base has historically been the Black community, specifically working class Black people. And so this multiracial coalition of grassroots organizations and labor institutions came together. That was more than 25 years ago. And what we do is we build from the grassroots up. We recruit candidates that otherwise wouldn't run because they don't have access to money, educators, organizers, folks in unions, everyday people. And we primarily focus on the local level, school boards, city council. That's the pipeline so people learn how to govern. And then eventually, like Summer Lee, for example, that cut her teeth in the state legislature and now is in Congress, eventually you could develop those skills of governing on the local level and find yourself in Congress. It's that slow, steady, consistent work that is going to build a movement that could actually sustain victories for our people. Instead of sort of flash in the pan politics and theatrics, look, anything that you want done, anything worth doing is going to take some work. And we've done the work to build a pathway for independent politics. I would be remiss if I didn't bring up Attorney General Tish James. She entered politics through the Working Families Party in 2003 because the Democratic Party didn't know what to do with the independent Black woman, but we did. And she ran as an independent working families person in city council in Brooklyn. And that's how she started. And eventually, once she got in, you can't beat them, join them. The Democrats embraced her and she rose all the way to the top and was able to hold Donald Trump accountable. So it's those politics, if you're really serious about independent politics, if you're serious about Black people governing, then you have to do the hard work of truly governing, but also of recruiting the hundreds or thousands of volunteers to develop the skills to figure out how to use people power in order to get somebody elected and push back against the billionaires, right? Zoran's campaign is a perfect example. They spent $40 million against him and they lost. They completely collapsed because we had the people power. But that people power doesn't come overnight. You have to assiduously build the people power. You need to be in the community. You need to actually be organizing year round, something that unfortunately both parties have either forgotten or are never interested in doing.
So then how do you... just to follow up quickly on Tiffany's question, for people who are not in places where there is an active formed Working Families Party, but are really upset at being, quote, taken for granted or not represented, not seen, the afterthought, where could they go? Because I almost see it as somewhat of a bit of a bargain, right? If you want us, you got to come with what you're going to get us, and we'll bargain with you about where we then put our support, our votes, our time, attention, volunteering, so on and so forth. So how do you equip other places, other communities with that kind of power?
Sure. So the Working Families Party isn't an organization that comes into a community. The Working Families Party is built in each community from the ground up. So if people are interested, I would ask them just go to our website and see if there is a chapter or if there's an organizing committee in their state. And if not, and they're serious, they should reach out to us. And we are down to talk. Listen, the interest is really intense about building the WFP. And we're interested in building WFP everywhere. The other thing is that we have volunteer opportunities for people, even in the places where we don't have staff or we don't have a chapter. And we support people everywhere to build basically like what we call, we don't have the elephant or the donkey like the Democrats or the Republicans. We have the wolf. And so we have our wolf packs and we support them in places where we don't have staff. And those wolf packs, they were getting down in this election all across the country, doing work both in their communities and also supporting candidates around the country. And so anybody who's listening to this and they're like, yeah, I believe that Black people have been taken for granted by the Democrats. I understand that the Republicans are racist. I understand that they are problematic. But if we continue doing what we've been doing, we're going to get the same results. The WFP is a viable option for people who want to do politics different, but also do politics in a way that's effective and strategic. And yeah, we invite anybody to figure out how they could get down with us. And we try to make it as easy as possible based on what level of commitment people have.
Got it. Thank you for that.
Mo, I want to ask you about Detroit. When you spoke earlier, you mentioned a city council race that you all were really excited about. Who did Working Families Party support in the mayoral race in Detroit?
Okay, so we didn't endorse in the mayoral race. We often focus on the places that we think we could have the most impact. I think, we're pleased with the outcome of the mayoral race, but we're fairly new in Detroit. And so at the stage and the level of capacity that we had, we focused on 2 city council races where we felt like we could have the most impact. And that was Denzel McCampbell and Gabriela Santiago Romero, who is currently on the city council. And so there's times where what we don't like to do is just kind of slap our logo on a particular race or just give a paper endorsement. We like to be really hands-on and provide real capacity and be the difference maker in the races that we're in. And in those races, we had a deep relationship. We were able to make a real difference, play a role on the independent side and also inside of the campaign. And, we're always making choices like that with our capacity, with our brand, with our endorsement, how we can have the most impact. And so in Detroit, that's how we showed up.
When you all are deciding, and I know especially for you, we talk about being a first or the only and being, Black in spaces where we have, critical influence. How do you all thread the needle when there's a Black elected official, at the top of the ticket and you're being faced with, there's this particular white opponent. Maybe you agree with the Black elected official. We just had this conversation on our main show as well, but 60, 70, 80% of the time. But this white person with no political experience is saying that they're going to ride with y'all till the wheels fall off. How do you make that decision and talk about the personal difficulty you encounter, if you have any, in making those types of decisions?
Sure. So I'm very careful. As a Black man and as a Black person in politics, I'm very careful and very precise as it relates to offering public critiques of Black elected officials, challenging Black elected officials, and I've done both. But I am very careful about it because sometimes those critiques could when in bad faith could become basically venues for anti-Blackness, which doesn't serve the broader agenda of Black politics. And so if you hear me critique a Black elected official, it has been very, very considered, right? I would say in general, when it comes to all of our endorsements, there isn't a WFP endorsement that doesn't go through a very rigorous process that considers a number of things. And there isn't a WFP endorsement that doesn't fundamentally go through a lot of vetting with grassroots organizations, labor institutions, and movement organizations on the ground in any particular city or state. And there isn't a organizing committee, which is one of the bodies where we deliberate, or a state committee that where we make these decisions, where there isn't a significant presence of Black folks who have been committed to Black power. And oftentimes those conversations happen, those in real time, where we talk about racial justice, we talk about what it means to challenge a sitting Black elected official, where we talk about how being an elected official is very different for Black people than for white people, where we factor in things like experience. And what gives me the confidence to support, we on Tuesday, we had more than 700 candidates on the ballot. What gives me the confidence to support all of our endorsements is I know that process was done in a very rigorous way. And so that's how I hold that tension, both personally, because I am the party leader and I represent the party. I make sure that the things I communicate, there's always a racial justice lens and there's always a lens around Black politics. And I've demurred from taking shots at sitting Black elected officials because of the larger framing. And I didn't feel like there was a way to call that question that wouldn't add to a anti-Black pylon, even if there was some validity to that critique. And then I've also taken those shots when I thought it was really important to create some contrast between the independent Black politics that is rooted in the grassroots and frankly, the bought and paid for Black politics of the establishment.
That's very.
Let me ask a question, because one of the things that I bring a slightly different perspective because I come from like the deep rural South, and I've noticed that there are some political policies like school choice, for example, which works in major cities, but doesn't necessarily work in rural areas. So my question is, political movements like WFP, like how do you replicate the involvement you all have? Because we have a working families party here, but it's they're awesome. I know them all, but it's not nearly as robust as it is in major cities. And I'm pretty sure it's the same in some other areas that we were looking at throughout the South. How do you replicate that robust effort in urban areas compared to rural areas where I say the overarching majority of Black folk live in the poor rural South?
That's right. Yeah, it's a great question, bro. I mean, I think, we were able to leverage fusion voting in New York, Connecticut, Oregon, and South Carolina up until we actually had until very recently when the Republicans outlawed fusion voting, because I think they were frightened of what we could build using fusion voting. But that's a whole other conversation. But the way that I approach it and the way that we approach it at the Working Families Party is, there's an amazing sister, Brittany Whaley, who leads our Southeast work and is based in Atlanta and has built the Georgia Working Families Party. And over the next few years is really investing in a Southern strategy for independent Black politics. That is going to look very different than the work that we did in New York over the past few years, right? And so it's not so much about replicating, right? Because I would never replicate the model of the New York party with what we're doing in Georgia and what we're doing actually around the South, because a lot of that is based on the particularities of the South, the particularities of what it means to build Black political power in a red state, which is just vastly different, right? And so one of the things that we always try to do is to be nimble so that the character of that state or that locality could really embody what the WFP looks like. And I think that's the lesson from today and from Election Day. A lot of people are talking about Zohran Mamdani, and I think that's appropriate. And I think there's lessons that we could glean from that. And also, Zohran's race is particular to Zohran in New York. So there's both things that are true across the country. Like, I think there's an affordability crisis that is facing working people everywhere. And it's a crisis. The affordability crisis is not just about economics, it's about dignity. And I think that's one of the reasons why people rebuked the Republicans. I also think there's a broad rebuke of Trumpism everywhere. And yeah, like New York is not the rural South, and we shouldn't pretend that it is. And the conditions of Black people in rural counties in South Carolina or in Georgia, where I recently was, aren't the same as the conditions of even Black folks in Bed-Stuy or Flatbush. And we do have commonalities. So I think it's kind of like a both and. The through line, though, is that the basis of independent politics and to prize our independence and to value our political power, which has been taken for granted, and to challenge the corporate politics that have captured our politics in general. Unfortunately, because our politics are so expensive, elected officials are constantly dialing for dollars. And that means even the elected officials with the best intentions are dragged towards being on phones with very wealthy people and corporate PACs in order to fund their elections. And there's something fundamentally wrong with that leads to a poor outcome, especially for working class and poor Black people. And so we need to build a different type of politics where if I'm a working class Black person in the rural South, I could run and win, and I could do so and prize my independence, not feel like I have to, do the dance with the corporate donors. And it's something that everybody has to make a decision around. And if we don't build that third space, then, we can't on one side critique people for doing that dance with corporate donors and not build that third space where people could thrive without corporate money. And so that's one of the things that we're trying to build, a third space in politics where principled people could thrive, run and win without that corporate money, without the AIPAC money or the AI money or the crypto money or pharma or the real estate lobby, which is awash in our politics in general, both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party.
Mo, you just brought up AIPAC and you posted a video recently. I want to run that clip.
I just got a text from an organization called the National Black Empowerment Fund. I just checked the website because I'm kind of a nerd. I like to do my due diligence and went on the About Us page. And, I see two very official pictures of two very official Black men, but it turns out they're anything but official. Those two men are all bought and paid for by AIPAC. Yeah. And the same corporate lobby that has ties with Bibi Netanyahu and the ultra far right authoritarian racist government that has pursued a war against the Palestinian people. Yeah, that AIPAC. Black empowerment and the Black agenda and AIPAC are like oil and water. My folks told me that you can only serve one master. There's no way you could serve AIPAC and the billionaires and serve the interests of Black people. That just doesn't happen. This is silly season on elections. The people that are supporting Andrew Cuomo, the right-wing agenda, AIPAC, they're pulling out all the stops because they're desperate, including creating fake Black organizations that claim to have presence in places like New York and Atlanta and St. Louis. This is a ploy, and we're onto it, and we're more sophisticated than that.
So, Mo, I wanted to play that in part. I will say that I definitely am not an AIPAC supporter, but I'm curious to know what y'all relied on to make this video. You called the organization fake. You said that it's bought and paid for by AIPAC. I'm interested to hear your feedback. And then Bakari, I'd love for you to talk about your experience with the group.
Yeah, we did our research. There's no question that both of those individuals and that organization is supported and funded by the same sources that AIPAC and its various political PACs are supported by. And when I say fake, I want to be really clear by what I mean, because I've been organizing my entire life. There's a difference between, first of all, the point of view on their flyers, that's a legitimate point of view that people might or might not have. But there's a difference between a organization that is a authentic Black organization that is founded by and rooted in the Black community that has all types of point of view. And I've been organizing in Black communities my entire life, and an AstroTurf organization that's like built by, various interests. And there's tons of AstroTurf organizations taking different positions. This just happens to be a Black one that is funded by those lobbies.
In this case, Angela, I think it was using AstroTurf and fake interchangeably. You can be real people and still not have any tentacles as an organizing organization. So I think that's how I interpreted your use of the word fake.
I understand, Bakari. Now I'm going to go to Andrew and ask Andrew then about his experience with this organization. I said, Joe, Bakari, if you could. Yes, because since you answered for Bakari, because I said, Bakari, can you talk about your experience? And now it looks
I haven't answered my experience yet. I'd be happy to share that, but I'll wait. Bakari?
Yes, I was asking Bakari to share his experience, but I think his computer is frozen, so you might be able to go ahead.
You want me to answer for you, Bakari? I could decry it on your behalf.
I don't know what's happening. His computer may have died. Andrew, do you want to talk about?
Well, I think your goal was to try to get someone who has had real experience, and basically what I think I heard Bakari share earlier is he is familiar with the organization, knows Darius. I know Darius. I think all of us do, actually.
I know Darius.
Who worked for AIPAC for a number of years. He's also someone who interfaced with my campaign when I was running for governor of the state of Florida, wanting to recruit me to go on an AIPAC-funded trip to Israel, of which I did not, but I've been to Israel a number of times, and as mayor had a sister city relationship in Ramat HaSharon. So didn't really feel the need to, but Darius is very much an organizer of African Americans serving in leadership positions, mostly elected, but and through journalism, through career political, so on and so forth, with a very strong pro Israeli sort of position. I don't know that I've ever heard them say that Netanyahu could do any wrong. I'm not sure that I have ever had an experience with them that didn't feel like a transaction. But I can't speak to, this organization, that you mentioned in the ad. I don't know them. But I know, at least I think Bakari shared with us that there were people who give input, maybe. Angela, you may be a better curator of his comments.
Yeah, I'm not better, and that's why I wanted Bakari to get to it. So I'm sorry that we had a technical issue. I think his computer died.
I went on
Yeah,
so I know Darius very well. I went on the AIPAC funded trip maybe like 12 years ago. I had a lot of curiosities around what was happening in the Middle East. Obviously, I'd done a lot of reading. I read, books and articles. And so I don't think I had the sophistication at the time to understand the influence that AIPAC had. But when I got to Israel, I certainly did. And it was clear to me from the time I set foot on ground that the Palestinians were tantamount to Black people. That felt analogous to me. They did provide a day or a part of the schedule in our day to hear directly from a Palestinian representative who shared their experience. I know Darius. I met him before I went on the trip. And yeah, Darius, he is a politician. He or a political operative. He worked for Kasim Reed for a while in Atlanta. Darius would very likely come on the show and answer difficult questions if that were ever an opportunity made to him. Might be good to have both of you guys on together. So I don't want to speak for Darius because I haven't talked to him in probably 10 years or so. But just in terms of going on this AIPAC trip, it was definitely revealing to me. I don't think I fit the mode of who they wanted to indoctrinate with AIPAC talking points. But I did definitely see people who were very politically ambitious be very willing to engage them on a very intimate level. That's not what I was there to do. And I had no such interest in carrying their water for them afterwards. I really was there out of intellectual curiosity and haven't had much dealings with them since. So just wanted to share.
Yeah. I thought it would be good, again, to just draw the distinction between AIPAC and this other group, National Black Empowerment Council, that now has National Black Empowerment Action Fund, I believe. Bakari might be joining us now. I don't have any dealings with them, but I was very interested in
You went on the trip for AIPAC.
I went on a congressional delegation trip with staff. I did not go on Darius's AIPAC
earlier
trip.
You had done that. Okay.
Yes, an AIPAC congressional delegation trip where I got kicked off the mailing list because I cussed them out at the end of the trip. So I just want to be very clear. This was not me going, I don't have any dealings with National Black Empowerment Council or National Black Empowerment Action Fund. And so when I pivoted to be after Maurice talks, it was so that we could get somebody who has had dealings specifically with that organization.
So 3 of us went to AIPAC, on an AIPAC trip. 2 of us went on Darius. So Bakari and I went on Darius. Angela went on the Codell, and just so our listeners and audience know, the congressional staffers go on these all the time. It wasn't like it was a special thing that Angela went to Israel and just Israel. Like staffers go to China. Like this is a common thing that happens.
Yeah.
So sorry, but Bakari's back. So I would love to hear from him.
South America. But
yes.
But Bakari, I want to make sure I'm drawing the distinction. There's AIPAC and then there's the National Black Empowerment Council, God damn it. Sorry, y'all. We just lost Bakari again. You know what? Maybe it's the Lord. Maybe it's not supposed to talk about this. But I was deeply curious about this.
Yeah.
Tiff, tapping into some of the things that you have stretched us on. It's an opportunity where there's some tension. Yeah. And I want to hear the other perspective because Bakari's had specific interaction with this organization. So Mo, it wasn't to like, gotcha. It was like, you're like, okay, this is my experience with this group. This is the text I got. These are the things they're saying, against Mamdani.
And the other thing is like, because we all are involved in politics, and there's a level of nuance and political sophistication that I think we could have like the real conversation.
Yeah.
So like this organization in the final day, it's like, silly season, final days, that's when you put everything out, was able to buy urban radio, was able to flood every Black voter with mail, text, was able to flood every Black voter with digital. And the messages have nothing to do with Israel, right? This is the same tactics used against Summer Lee, the same tactics used against Cori Bush, the same tactics used against Jamal Bowman. The messages have nothing to do with Israel or the actual intent of the donors, right? Which is to prevent progressives from governing in Congress or any place else. But the backers are aligned with the right-wing agenda of Israel and the right-wing agenda of the United States, right? And that's what is happening, right? And so, I don't know Darius. I'm sure he's a fine and decent person to his family and to the people that know him. And we need to have a structural analysis of what's actually happening here when, that mail comes in and what is the purpose of it, And so we could, I think be able to like talk about individuals, our relationships to them, whether or not we think they're good people or not, but also have the structural conversation of what's actually happening structurally.
Absolutely.
Well, and I think that's what made me curious about it, and why I wanted to talk about it with Bakari too, who engages with this group. Because what's curious to me is when you go to their website, and you go to like their Action Fund Instagram page, you go to their the council's page, there's not anything that says that they're doing anything by and for AIPAC or with AIPAC. It has a very particular Black bent. Now, that said, we know that there are shadow organizations propped up all the time that do some of this same work. What I'm curious about is from someone who's a colleague and family to us, what his involvement is and what his experience has been with this group. Because sometimes I think I'm especially tender right now. I'm the most defensive of this bunch because I see what people say about us. We're Democratic shills. They were bought by Republicans. And it's all of this, who paid you to say this kind of thing. And it's like, what if that's not the case? And is there a way to get to a point of understanding, despite the fact that from the mailers I saw that you put up in the text, that you put up, that you received from them is ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean,
I want to know.
And I think, I think there's levels of nuance that we could hold around it. And like, I appreciate this conversation because we often talk in black and white, and we often talk in like, all right, who's a shill and who's actually for the people. And we all know that, in fact, like there's all types of levels of nuance. And I think we could kind of hold some of the nuances and also not get lost in the nuance and be able to say, yeah, I'm opposed to AIPAC's agenda and their commitment to the war of genocide against the Palestinian people, and Bibi Netanyahu and his, like, this is not me saying it, this is like most observers, racist authoritarian government. And he's not even the most racist in his government. And AIPAC for sure, is the American lobby for all that, right? And so,
for sure.
And if there happen to be Black people who I might share a beer with or might share community with that are aligned with that, I'm still opposed to them. Right? Like, I mean, at the end of the day, like, you could be as Black as anybody else and have a wrong point of view. And it doesn't make you less Black, but it does make your point of view wrong, at least from my perspective. And so I think we could hold that. And like, it's to me, it's the same conversation with Black conservatives. There's a huge difference between people who love Black people who have conservative point of views and people who their main source of income is saying whatever pleases the white conservative audience online, right? Like, that's just a different, and we should be able to talk about those things. Like, I share a community with tons of Black people who have a different point of view than me, and I recognize that person does love Black people at the end of the day. And there's people who I can't see their love for Black people. They share the same Black skin, but they're operating differently. And like, we got to be able to talk about these things, right? Like, yes, there is difference, and we don't need uniformity in our community. And there's this like, well, I'm not trying to get in anybody's bag, or I'm not trying to knock anybody's hustle. I think there's some hustles we should knock, right? I think there's some hustles we should.
Can I just jump in, because we're running a bit out of time, and I think Bakari is coming back, and I know that you have a flight that you're trying to catch, but I just want to say, out of fairness, it's one thing for you to post on social media, but I just want to be really responsible with our platform. We're talking about someone that we did not reach out to get a statement from him, to get his position. I have not talked to Darius. I think the last time was like maybe years ago. I might have sent him a happy birthday text. Yep. So none of this is rooted in a conversation. I certainly didn't do any investigative background check into this group. We're just going based off what you said. So I think, just to be responsible to him and his partner and this organization, we should be really clear that this was just based on a social media post that you made. It would make sense to me to offer Darius the opportunity to speak for himself and come on and answer questions himself about what their platform stands for, what their affiliation with AIPAC is, who funds them. If he's willing to have that conversation, I know I would certainly be willing to ask those questions, just being transparent.
And I think it's bigger than any one individual, and certainly bigger than that brother. And I've never met him. It's a conversation.
Well, since we showed his picture and all of that, like, I think we have to at least acknowledge that.
I think we played the social media video, and again, I'm so sorry, y'all, that we are having some technical difficulties with Bakari. Bakari has firsthand experience with the National Black Empowerment Council, and so he at least would be able to speak to what this organization does. It is incorporated. It is organized. Jerron Smith, who is a friend of mine, but who works in the Trump administration, is a lobbyist, or has been a lobbyist for them. So they do have some organizational structure. The Action Fund is where he lobbied, actually, and the Empowerment Council.
Okay, great. Please go ahead. Talk about your experience with Black empowerment.
Look at his face.
And Darius. Yes. Go, please.
Can you hear us?
So first of all, I think you have to be very cautious about calling Black people bought and paid for. I mean, that's first. I think that Darius is somebody I know very well who's done great work, and I'm just always very cautious about castigating people like that, particularly when you don't have that intimate or personal knowledge with them. It's an indictment on one's character. But even more importantly, what they're doing now, regardless of the consternation that people have about AIPAC, the work that they're doing now, the NBEC, the National Black Economic Alliance or Council, I mean, the founders, the leadership of that group, they actually are business people in our community trying to meet people where they are. And they actually had great success last night. I mean, if you look at the fact that they were influential in Andre Dickens, influential in Mary Sheffield, influential in the mayor of Buffalo, you saw that they were actually doing the work. And I think at the end of the day, they're organizations who have, whether or not it's from corporate America or grassroots, particularly interest of trying to get Black folk elected, probably need to have more conversations than not. And so I'm sorry about my technical difficulty, but I also had to let people know that I know Darius extremely well, and I take aback at the bought notion. And your criticisms of founding or who people are very, that they're fine. I wouldn't hold you to account for any of your personal opinions. But also, let's look at the fact that they won some races last night, and they were in places where we're able to make history. And so whether or not it's a group of people who are business folk or grassroots folk, if you're trying to get Black people elected throughout the country, I think it's something that's noble.
Bakari, can I ask you, do you know if they're affiliated directly or funded by AIPAC?
Well, they're not affiliated directly. I'm pretty sure that there are some donors who donate to AIPAC and the National Black Economic Council. I wouldn't say that those things are diametrically opposed, but I can also say there are people in AIPAC who have the similar disdain to Bibi Netanyahu that others around this panel may have. I mean, but in regards to the individuals in the group, it's a group of professional Black folk. That's who NBEC is. I'm not with them. I'm not a part of them, but that's who they are. I mean, you actually have HBCU presidents that are on there. And so I just can't sit here and throw the whole organization out. When last night, as I keep saying last night, Tiffany, I'm sorry, but when this week they helped lay the foundation, and maybe not solely, but with other grassroots organization to get people elected.
I always love when we can
engage with them at all.
When we can qualify who won who in an election. I always find it fascinating.
I hate that. They supported people who won. Of course, they didn't win an election for somebody. But
Bakari, have you had any experience with them or the Action Fund?
I mean, I know them extremely well. Like we're friends, but I mean,
I'm trying to make sure I didn't lie on you while your internet didn't work. That's why I'm asking.
No, I don't do. No, I'm not a founder or a member or anything, but I'm friends with all of them. I mean, for the most part. I mean, I ain't gonna sit here and say I'm not friends with folk.
Was everybody affiliated that have they participated in the AIPAC?
Oh, I don't know the answer to that.
Okay,
I mean, you got to realize I went on the first AIPAC trip, and so. When we're talking about Darius's trips, I was one of the people who went on the first trip.
You mean the first Darius trip? Because they've been doing Codell's for years.
Well, the first Darius, yes, the first trip that Darius, and actually I might have gone before Darius actually became a part of the group. So I'm not sure, and I can't answer the question of whether or not people were involved in that. But what I can say is, I think that there was a specific race in New York, and the mayor's race, that people got sideways over, and I think that. There are other races around the country that you'd be surprised where we are more similar than not.
Do you know? This is my last question.
Jesus, am I on the stand, Angela? I don't know.
Yes,
I just told you.
Your fucking internet went out. I'm annoyed.
I just told you call Darius and get him on the show. That's what I just said.
No, Tiff agrees with you, but here's my question, because I am curious about this, and you can answer it. You could say no comment. I'm gonna wait till Darius comes on the show. I'll defer to you and Tiff on that interview. But here's my question. Why, if their focus is electing Black candidates, lifting up Black leaders, what role were they playing in the New York mayor's race?
I mean, I'm not going to answer for Darius, but I think that there's a direct belief that democratic socialism is not best for Black folk. And I mean, that he literally put that on his Instagram page. But you got me.
Or is it because Zoran's middle name is Kwame?
I'm pretty sure they've endorsed a Black Kwame before.
Teasing. I'm just teasing. I was joking.
It's enough.
I was joking.
He
lived in Uganda. They he Black enough. He was living in Uganda for 7 years.
But I will tell you this, man. I ain't gonna lie to you.
They were on the wrong side of a Black person.
Can I just tell y'all this, man? The choices in New York for me personally were just interesting choices between Eric Adams, Andrew Cuomo, and Zoran Mandani. And I just think that right now, my prayer for Zoran is that he reach out to people like Andrew Gillum, Frank Scott, Randall Wolfen, that he reach out to people like Andre Dickens, that he reach out to people who have gone through that storm, who have led major cities, and who have come out on the other side with some level of success. Because we need to all hope he's successful, because it ain't nothing but a bunch of Black folk that live up there in New York City anyway.
That's something we all could agree on. The governing... but the governing experiment that will be the Mamdani administration, we need that experiment to succeed, because there's 2 million Black folks who live in New York who need a safer, more affordable city, a city that actually works for us, that takes seriously the Black agenda, and we haven't had that. We have not had that.
The Black man running for mayor was arguably one of the worst ones for Black folk.
Fair.
Again,
that's a beautiful capstone.
No
you
objection.
Put on.
No objection.
So without objection, the Black people have welcomed everybody home. Mo, we kept you way past. I hope we didn't
I'm
make
sorry,
you
Mo. I apologize. I apologize for the disrespect of my system. I apologize for the Apple.
You need to get a new computer immediately.
All right, well, send me Apple money.
Nah, bro. It's called Apple Pay, by the way. But anyway, we appreciate you. Maurice Mitchell from Working Families Party. I got some other questions for you, but we ran out of time.
Come back.
And Bakari, thank you for coming back on AOL dial-up. I'm sorry that your parents picked up your phone and interrupted your connection. Thank you all so much. Welcome home.
Welcome home, y'all.
Native Land Pod is a production of iHeartRadio in partnership with Reason Choice Media. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.